The other day, I made a tweet that said that most of the people who made rap music from my generation of music NFTs is no longer in music NFTs or Web3 or crypto or whatever at all. A lot of people replied to it, saw it, sent a message, whatever, talking about all the different reasons that things turned out like that. Why so many people in general left music NFTs, but also why people in rap did. I kind of want to talk about what I'm thinking and how I see it or whatever. I normally don't think too much about my videos leading into them, but for this one I have a couple of maybe points or whatever that I want to lean into. Perspectives more so than points. First, from the perspective of an artist, I think we were looking for more streams of revenue for our music, of course. Looking for more ways to reach people, of course. Looking for ways to do it more efficiently as well. And looking for ways to take advantage of the tech to get more data on our fans. All of that seems right. The thing that ended up happening was that artists didn't have similar incentives to all the other parties involved. And so it created this mismatch where everyone wasn't able to work together successfully for a long period of time. When you look at traditional music, a lot of times you're getting money and support from a label in order to proliferate your music, to push your music out, to give it more opportunities, to market it, et cetera, et cetera. And in exchange for that, you give up a percentage of your money, a percentage of your masters, all your masters, whatever. And the incentives are aligned there. I think in music NFTs, the incentives weren't aligned. If you look at it from the perspective of the collector, they were looking for something that not only had a cultural value to it, but that cultural value was able to drive up the price of it. And what ended up happening was, as the market continued to shift, artists' priorities still continued to be around finding alternate revenue streams for their music. And collectors were starting to realize that the artifacts they were collecting had lost some of their financial value because we were minting so many editions, we were doing open editions, we weren't doing things that pushed forward our reputation in crypto specifically. You see this a lot with PFP projects where they'll become more poppin' in the real world, but aren't more poppin' on chain. And a lot of that was happening on the music side. Collectors often felt that they weren't being looked at as a special type of fan by artists. I can agree there. I'm not saying I was against it, but I'm not someone who was so much about going out of my way to send that DM to that collector and, oh, thank you so much. Like, oh, what do you love about my work? Da, da, da. Like, I was never that kind of guy. And collectors really liked that. Collectors really wanted to be a part of what was going on. Something I learned a lot later, that collectors were really interested in just being a part of that story. So those two incentives weren't aligning. You look at the platform incentive, all of these NFT platforms and marketplaces were VC backed. So eventually they had to try to figure out ways to make money. you started to see fees on sales, you started to see fees to mint, you started to see all these different things where platforms were prioritizing either how much money they were making or how many people were using their platforms, and that was the value for them. These incentives did not align with the collector incentives, which did not align with the artist incentives, which did not align with the platform incentives. So what ended up happening was all of these people, all of these parties, I should say, had different reasons for entering the game, different things that they viewed as success, and they never found alignment on it. I think one of the big things that made this even more apparent was that you didn't see too many artists being the founders of things. You didn't see too many large collectors being the founders of things. A lot of times founders were just founders, working in tech, working in music, but not necessarily a musician, not necessarily a collector. And so they may have struggled with understanding the perspective of the collector or artist, just sort of inherently. Their goals in creating the platform may have been pro-artist or pro-collector, but they may have had a misunderstanding of what the artist or collector was thinking because they were approaching it from a different angle. I think that's valuable, but I think there weren't enough artist or collector co-founders for these platforms. You had an idea guy and you had a tech guy who often worked in either tech or music. The other perspective that I don't think had too large of an effect on it, but could have had an effect on it if they were willing to play, was the music industry at large. I think the larger music industry couldn't find a good way in that aligned with their incentives. A lot of their incentives were wrapped up in Web 2 things, the copyrights, the publishing, the master recordings, how to split things, where does the money go to the label, does the label have an address, if I give the control to the artist because I need it to mint from the artist's wallet, what does that mean, who's in control of what, who's communicating what, is it a scam, are people being scammed, are my fans getting this, are my fans getting that. You saw labels start to play the game a little bit, but they didn't dive all the way in, which I understand. They have a lot more on the line than us as independent creators. But I think if they had found something that could have aligned with their incentives, it would have been a very interesting time for music in Web3. I say all that to say that everyone thinks they have an answer and no one has an answer. And I really don't think that the people, especially the artists, oh my God, especially the artists who exist in Web3 even are thinking about each other as different parties who contribute towards the full ecosystem of music in Web3, music, NFTs, whatever you want to call them, on-chain music. It's the first time I said that this video. I don't like that term. I hate that term. I know people are still trying things. Eventually we may find a solution. The tough part is aligning incentives. I think everyone's only looking for what they can gain and no one's thinking about what they need to give up. And I think we need to think a little bit more from the perspective of compromise. Artists, collectors, platforms, music industry, thinking about what we should give up in order for you to gain what you want to gain. All this AI stuff is going to make it really interesting too. I think artists are going to try to become founders more often. especially as the AI tech catches up to the APIs for smart contract interaction. It's going to be an interesting ride. I don't have any answers. I am just another asshole with an opinion, but I hope that I am your asshole with an opinion. I'll catch you next time.